I don't like to talk about women or girls as disappeared. I think that's a result of male violence and a result of colonization, and it's not as if they're just disappearing into thin air. Men are taking our women and taking our girls. The second point is not only a policy change we're looking for, but in addition to legislation, we're looking for a shift in attitudes. Shift in attitudes about Native women. When I talked about unceded territories, we had traditions, and our laws, our traditional laws, served us and protected us and recognized our inherent right to dignity and safety as Aboriginal women. We had those laws, they existed. And so what we want is the general Canadian public to give a shit about Aboriginal women. What happens is we have such huge numbers disappearing, nobody does anything because they view Native women as worthless, and that's not the case at all. We need change in the public will, and we need people to start addressing their own racism, addressing their white privilege, addressing their role in colonization. In addition to that, this notion that we have as soon as children turn 18 or 19, it's a free choice or it's free will. We need to get rid of that. We need to care about all women, whether they're 17 or 19, it doesn't matter. What men are doing is wrong, and that leads me to my last point. We need to be addressing the demand. We don't accept that the demand for access to women's and children's body is inevitable. We don't accept that male violence will always be with us. And if we start there, we can address the demand, we can address the violence, and prevent men from doing those things to us instead of kind of further constraining our lives and our movements.
As Aboriginal women, regardless of where we are, regardless of whose territories we are on, we can't talk about the murdered and the missing women without talking about prostitution. And when we talk about prostitution, we cannot leave out the murdered and missing women. There is a link. And we know that because of the Picton trials that just happened. We know that most of the women were not Aboriginal in numbers. But considering the demographics and the population, we are highly overrepresented in those murders. And currently in Vancouver, there's a man by the last name of Tremblay who is imprisoned on drug trafficking charges. And this man feeds drugs and alcohol to our youth. He feeds alcohol and drugs to our girls. He rapes them, he videotapes them, and he shares that information. And in March of last year, 2 girls that were with this man ended up dying. So far, there have been no charges of even criminal negligence, manslaughter, or any sort of murder charges laid against him. As Aboriginal women in our community, we have been the ones who have pressured groups to say, we need to speak out. We need to talk about this because we have to talk about Aboriginal women and girls. It's gendered, and there's no age. And when we talk about Aboriginal women and girls, we want to make very clear to every one of you that just because our girls turn 18, the violence doesn't stop and they have a choice for it. It's really important that you understand that, and that's why our voices have been really strong about these men who abuse, rape, maim, and murder our sisters and our daughters.